Greetings. Before I tell this story, I would ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stories like this. And now we begin our story.
Shadows over my heart. The sterile white walls of the hospital room seemed to close in on Yael, a constant reminder of the fragility of her own pulse. Israel was far from home, yet necessary. The diagnosis had been brutal, a severe congenital heart defect that demanded immediate and extensive intervention. Yael's every breath was a struggle, but Aitan vowed to be her steadfast companion through this ordeal. At first his visits were frequent and filled with tender words, his presence a balm to her beleaguered spirit. However, as days turned into weeks, subtle shifts began to unsettle the fragile peace between them. Eaton's once warm eyes now often gazed past her into unknown distances, and his attentiveness waned. Messages would go unanswered longer than before, and fleeting excuses slipped from his lips when questioned. Yael's vulnerability was not solely physical. An emotional tempest was brewing within her, threatening to wash away the foundation of their relationship. Talia, Yael's unwavering friend, became her midnight confidant. In whispered conversations, she voiced concerns that Yael hesitated to admit aloud. "Are you sure Aitan is really here for you?" she asked gently, yet piercingly. Talia's intuition did not fabricate doubt, but amplified the unease already nesting deep inside Yael's heart. The very thought of betrayal was a jagged thorn among her wounds, yet there was a faint trace of truth she dared not ignore. In contrast, Lyron, the dutiful cardiologist, represented reason and hope. His calm demeanor and professional advice offered Yael a lifeline amidst the chaos. "Healing is as much about peace of mind as it is about the body," he reminded her during appointments. Yet the dissonance between her physical recovery and emotional turmoil grew ever more pronounced. Lyron's clinical encouragement could not erase the shadows pooling around her heart. Late one afternoon, while sunlight dappled the hospital corridor, Yael overheard a whispered conversation outside her room. Names floated on the air: Aitan and Noam. Noam was a colleague from Aitan's workplace, someone Yael had only met briefly at a gathering before her hospitalization. The realization that this casual acquaintance might now be entwined with Aitan in ways she did not wish to fathom struck like lightning. Ronan, her ex-boyfriend, unintentionally resurfaced in her thoughts during these dark hours. Memories of his tenderness and even his flaws offered a bittersweet contrast. Ronan had never betrayed her trust. His shortcomings lay elsewhere. The juxtaposition of past and present relationships gnawed at Yael's sense of self, weaving confusion into her already frail heart. As the hospital nights stretched long, Yael found solace in Talia's presence. They shared stories, laughter, and tears, the latter falling silently beneath the fluorescent hum. Talia's support was a beacon amidst the creeping isolation, a reminder that Yael was not entirely alone. Yet the gnawing doubt about Aitan's fidelity cast a shadow that darkened even the brightest moments. One morning, an unexpected text from an unknown number arrived on Yael's phone, a brief, cryptic message hinting at secrets best kept hidden. The message, unsigned but unmistakably intimate, stirred a storm of questions. Could this be proof of Aitan's disloyalty, or a cruel misunderstanding born from stress and fear? The ambiguity tore at Yael's grip on reality. Aitan's demeanor that evening was markedly distant when he finally appeared. His explanations were rehearsed and hushed, too polished to reassure. Yael sensed a growing chasm between their lives, a rift that no promises could bridge. Her heart, both biologically and metaphorically, felt battered beyond endurance. The man who once vowed support now felt like a stranger wrapped in a guise of concern. The clinical routine imposed by Lyron continued relentlessly, demanding strength Yael was struggling to summon. Tests, scans, and consultations filled her days, yet her nights were haunted by fears not found in medical charts. Whispers of infidelity, The cold absence of Eitan's smile and the weight of loneliness created an emotional landscape desolate and uncertain. Talia urged Yael to confront her fears, to demand truth and clarity. "You deserve honesty," she insisted. But Yael grappled with the paradox of vulnerability and self-preservation. How could she face a betrayal when her body was so fragile? How to defend a heart already bruised by illness and doubt? The internal conflict was as intense as any physical pain she endured. Noam's role became increasingly ambiguous. Yael caught glimpses of his name on Eitan's phone, overheard his voice during hurried phone calls, imagined conversations that may or may not exist. The notion of a secret liaison gnawed mercilessly, fueling sleepless nights and tear-streaked mornings. Eitan's evasiveness and the whispered rumors that drifted through hospital corridors only deepened her suspicion. The proximity of her mortality struck a cruel chord, as if time itself mocked her plight. Yael yearned for steadfast love amid the maelstrom, yet found herself adrift in stormy seas of duplicity. The contrast between the fragile beat of her heart and the crushing weight of emotional betrayal was a relentless torment. Amid these shadows, Lyron's steady presence offered a sanctuary of hope. His gentle reminders to focus on healing and perseverance grounded Yael when despair threatened to consume her. Still, the emotional fracture with Eitan widened, threatening to undo both their fates. The fragile threads that once bound them frayed under the pressure of secrets and silence. Talia remained a constant, urging Yael to find strength not just for survival, but for reclaiming her dignity. "You are not alone in this fight," she vowed, her loyalty unwavering. This support kindled a flicker of resilience in Yael's weary soul, a determination to unearth the truth when her body was strong enough. Night blended into dawn, with Yael caught between hope and heartbreak. The once dreamlike image of Eitan as protector dissolved, replaced by a chilling uncertainty. Her body might heal, but could her heart endure the betrayals that whispered in every shadow of her hospital room? As the chapter of her convalescence unfolded, Yael faced not only the peril of her illness, but the crumbling edifice of trust. The battle ahead demanded more than medical strength. It required confronting the painful reality that love, like life, could be fragile and fraught with unforeseen darkness. Steps echoed in the corridor, a sign that tomorrow would bring new challenges and revelations. Yael breathed deeply, steel beneath her fragile exterior, ready to face whatever lay beyond the veil of shadows. Betrayal beneath the surface. Yael lay in the sterile hospital room in Israel, her body fragile from heart surgery, yet her mind unsettled by shadows creeping into her thoughts. Under Dr. Lyron's meticulous care, she had hoped to heal not only her heart physically, but also the gaps in her life she had long ignored. But beneath the surface of her medical battles, a different kind of pain was swelling. Rumors whispered late at night by nurses and hinted at in furtive glances began to reach her ears. Eitan, the man she had trusted implicitly, was entangled in a secret that threatened to shatter her already fragile world. The involvement of Noam, a name she heard with disbelief and heartbreak, painted a betrayal more devastating than any illness. The early days after her surgery hummed with hope and discomfort, intertwined. Each breath was a reminder of her vulnerability, yet also of her resilience. But as hours passed, fragments of her suspicions crystallized into harsh realities. Talia, her steadfast friend, became her anchor. Sitting close by, offering warmth and silent strength, Talia whispered truths that Yael struggled to face aloud. "You deserve honesty, even if it hurts," she said softly, opening a window into the painful truths veiled behind Eitan's smiles. The irony of love turning cold while her heart mended was not lost on Yael. The sting of Eitan's betrayal grated against the calm routine of Dr. Lyron's treatments. Without warning, memories of Ronan surfaced unexpectedly. Ronan, her past love whose own flaws had carved wounds she thought had healed. Unlike Aiton, Ronan's deceit had been clearer, less insidious. Yet here she was grappling with a betrayal so close, so recent, it felt like a fresh wound reopening. This cycle of heartbreak forced Yael to confront not just Aiton's disloyalty, but also her own hopes and fears about love and trust. Between checkups and medication schedules, she wrestled with whether to confront Aiton or bury the truth for her own peace. Each choice seemed to pull apart the fragile threads stitching her life together. Noam's shadow lengthened over her recovery. Whispers painted him not only as the lover behind Aiton's back, but also a cunning figure who thrived in the vulnerability of others. The hospital corridors seemed smaller, the walls closer, as if suffocating her with every heartbeat. Yet even in the darkest moments, Dr. Lyron's calm presence offered clarity. His advice went beyond medical protocols, touching on the emotional turmoil Yael faced. Healing is not just physical, he said thoughtfully. It demands facing truths, no matter how painful. That is where real strength lies. These words became a mantra, urging Yael to look beyond betrayal and rediscover the strength buried within her. Aiton, once a figure of comfort and unwavering support, crumbled under the weight of Yael's silent accusations and Talia's protective defiance. Their conversations, when they occurred, were sharp and fraught with tension. Each lie exposed by Yael peeled back layers of a relationship she had cherished. Aiton oscillated between remorse and selfish denial, complicating Yael's ability to find closure. Yet his presence in the hospital room also brought a sickening familiarity that was difficult to escape. The man who was meant to be her anchor turned into an emotional storm she had to weather alone in her weakest moments. Talia's role grew beyond friendship into a lifeline. She sat through countless nights holding Yael's hand, recounting stories that reminded her friend of her worth beyond Aiton's betrayal. Talia's laughter echoed like a distant promise of better days, and her unwavering presence became a fortress against despair. Together they navigated the murky waters of heartbreak, turning tears into strength. The contrast between Yael's previous life with Aiton and the newfound courage to stand alone ignited a transformation. Each day brought a renewed determination to reclaim her life, no longer defined by betrayal but by resilience. As Yael's body healed, so did her soul, albeit slower and with more scars. She began writing letters to herself, articulating feelings too raw to speak aloud. These letters became a private rebellion, a way to process pain and cultivate hope. The juxtaposition of physical recovery and emotional upheaval was exhausting yet strangely empowering. Memories of love lost entwined with visions of a future uncharted. No longer tethered to Aiton's deceit, she allowed herself to imagine happiness beyond heartbreak. This inner journey was fragile but vital for the next steps in her healing. Dr. Lyron's calm and clinical demeanor proved indispensable as Yael faced the darker aspects of her recovery. Each appointment was a reminder that survival required confronting all aspects of pain. He encouraged her to explore therapy and reconnect with friends who buoyed her spirits. His questions were gentle but probing, pushing Yael to acknowledge the impact of betrayal on her well-being. Gradually, medical updates intertwined with emotional insight, revealing a holistic approach that fortified Yael's resolve. He wasn't just her doctor. He became a catalyst for reclaiming strength in the aftermath of devastation. As days turned to weeks, Aiton's absence from the hospital room became more pronounced. His initial promises to stay supportive dwindled into silence, a choice that spoke volumes about his true priorities. Yael recognized that forgiveness was not a requirement for survival or happiness. Letting go of Aiton was not surrender, but an act of reclaiming her power. The realization unlocked a new realm of independence, a chance to rebuild a life untethered from past pain. This epiphany marked a turning point in Yael's journey, where vulnerability met strength in a delicate dance. Throughout her recovery, Yael held on to the hope that love could be redefined, that trust could be rebuilt, but now on her terms. The pain inflicted by Eitan's infidelity forced her to discard illusions and face reality with fierce clarity. She reflected on the lessons learned from Ronan, comparing past and present betrayals not as identical scars, but as chapters shaping her resilience. Her friendship with Talia grew into a beacon of what true loyalty meant, contrasting sharply with the betrayal endured. In these moments of reflection, Yael felt the stirrings of a new identity emerging from the ashes of heartbreak. The hospital walls, once confining and sterile, transformed into a crucible, forging a stronger Yael. Each medical test and emotional revelation contributed to a deeper understanding of self and what she valued. The support from Dr. Luron and Talia created a network of care and truth that contrasted starkly with the deceit she escaped. Eitan's shadow receded as Yael's light grew, proving that healing was possible even in the wake of profound betrayal. This chapter of her life was ending, but its lessons and strength would carry her forward. As the immediate crisis faded, Yael began to plan for her future beyond the hospital. She envisioned time spent strengthening not only her body, but also her spirit. The journey ahead promised challenges, but also the opportunity to redefine love, trust, and self-respect. Conversations with Talia grew more hopeful, and tentative steps toward reconnection with friends bridged old wounds. With Dr. Lyron continuing his guidance, Yael felt prepared to face the unknown. The tangled emotions stirred by Eitan and Noam were no longer chains, but reminders of the resilience she now embodied. The betrayal that once seemed insurmountable was now a catalyst for growth. Yael's heart, fragile yet healing, held space for lessons learned and boundaries to protect her future self. The pain of deception softened into resolve, a determination to never lose sight of her worth again. This transformation was not instant, but a gradual emergence of strength from vulnerability. With every breath and every beat, Yael reclaimed not only her health, but her power to define her story. As she stepped away from the hospital shadows, a new chapter awaited, ready to be written with courage and hope. Rising stronger from brokenness, the sterile hospital room became a symbol of both confinement and awakening for Yael. While she had entered its walls burdened by the weight of a failing heart, what unfolded within went far beyond the realm of medicine. The emotional turmoil she faced eclipsed the physical pain. Her boyfriend's betrayal unfolded quietly, like a shadow creeping into her most vulnerable moments. Noam, once a distant acquaintance, had crossed lines forbidden and sacred during her hospitalization in Israel. In those silent, sterile hours, Yael wrestled not only with her heart's fragility, but with the fracture of trust that threatened to undo her completely. Lyron, her gentle and steadfast doctor, noticed the deepening shadows behind Yael's eyes. Their countless conversations shifted from the clinical to the profoundly personal. With his steady guidance, Yael began to see that healing would not stop at the surgical incision. Lyron's empathy and wisdom provided a lighthouse in her storm, showing her that survival meant more than a new pulse. It called for the mending of spirit and identity. His medical advice merged with moral counsel, encouraging Yael to rethink her narrative and recognize the depth of her resilience. Talia was Yael's unwavering anchor throughout this storm. As a friend, she wove herself into Yael's daily existence, filling moments of despair with laughter and gentle understanding. Talia's presence nurtured the fragile seed of hope planted amidst betrayal, reminding Yael that she was more than the sum of others' mistakes. Together, they crafted rituals of renewal, long walks by the quiet seaside, healing conversations under the open sky, and the reclamation of dreams shelved too soon. Talia's loyalty was a balm that reshaped Yael's loneliness into strength. Eitan, introduced unexpectedly into this fragile circle, brought with him a fresh perspective on love and trust. Unlike Ronan, Yael's ex, who had left scars etched deeply through past wounds, Aitan's patience and genuine care kindled the possibility of new beginnings. His presence was not a replacement, but a reaffirmation that Yael's heart, battered as it was, still beat with capacity for warmth and connection. Together they confronted the painful past, dismantling its hold with courage and openness. The confrontation with Noam was inevitable and harrowing. Yael faced him not with anger, but with a fierce clarity born of deep reflection. Her voice, though trembling, bore the strength of someone who had crossed a threshold from victimhood to agency. This moment did not break her. It sparked the fierce reclaiming of her narrative. By speaking her truth, Yael shattered illusions and rose from the ashes of betrayal with dignity intact, refusing to let deceit define her worth or future. Forgiveness emerged not as a simple act, but as a layered process. It was forgiveness toward Noam for the sake of releasing herself from chains, toward Ronan for past wounds that still bled, and most importantly, toward herself for the moments of vulnerability she had once berated. With Lyron's guidance, Yael learned that forgiveness was a gift of freedom, an offering to her own spirit that lightened the heart's heavy load. In embracing this complex forgiveness, she found a path to genuine empowerment. Each step of Yael's journey reshaped her relationship with her body and heart. Illness had marked her as fragile, but healing redefined her as fierce and enduring. The cardiac scars paralleled emotional ones, each telling stories of survival and strength. Her daily practices, from mindful breathing to gentle movement, connected her to her body's wisdom and signaled her intention to nurture rather than neglect. This newfound respect for self was a declaration that no external betrayal could ever diminish her intrinsic brightness. As days turned to weeks, Yael's identity shifted subtly yet profoundly. No longer tethered solely to her medical story or the pain of betrayal, she embraced a multifaceted self, one who grieved openly, loved cautiously, and stood firm fiercely. Relationships took on new meanings. Boundaries strengthened like well-crafted armor, and her voice found its rightful place in conversations once dominated by doubt. The process was neither linear nor easy, but it was authentically hers, and that truth was her newly found power. This transformation radiated into Yael's dreams and ambitions. She no longer hid her scars, but wore them like badges of honor, symbols of battles waged and won. And, with support from Talia and encouragement from Lyron, Yael began envisioning a future where her past did not dictate limitations, but offered lessons. She dared to take risks, small at first, reclaiming joys once overshadowed by fear. In embracing a hopeful perspective, she actively authored a narrative of resilience that outshone despair. The emotional wilderness Yael traversed also deepened her empathy for others, facing hidden battles. Conversations shifted from personal pain to collective strength, reminding her that hearts break and heal in echoes across lives. In this communal understanding, Yael's story gained broader meaning, becoming a testament to human courage in the face of vulnerability. Through sharing her truth, she invited others to step into their own power, fostering a ripple effect of healing beyond the hospital walls. As the final days of her recovery neared, Yael stood at a crossroads between past shadows and future light. She chose the latter with unwavering resolve, recognizing that hope was not naive but courageous. The journey through heart surgery and heartbreak was not an endpoint but a profound beginning. Supported by friends, guided by wise counsel, and strengthened by self-love, she stepped forward into the unknown, her spirit rising stronger from brokenness. With shadows behind her, Yael found strength in the promise of each new dawn. The pulse within echoed with renewed purpose and authenticity, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. This was not merely survival, it was a celebration of transformation. The path forward was hers to claim, brightened by the lessons of pain and the fierce light of resilience. The unfolding story held infinite possibilities, inviting Yael to live boldly, love deeply, and rise ever stronger. As we turn from this intimate chapter of healing and empowerment, the next journey beckons with the promise of new challenges and growth. The heart, though mended, remains an ever-changing landscape of hopes and trials, a canvas awaiting the colors of tomorrow's choices and dreams. In the forthcoming moments, Yael's story continues, propelled by the indomitable spirit she has so courageously cultivated.